Hi, this is Elliot Eisenberg of Graphs and Laughs, here to catch you up to date on the latest in residential sales data for the month of May. In May, in Hillsborough County, single-family home prices declined 1.2% over the last 12 months. That was the smallest decline across all three counties and both types of properties. Multifam prices slipped just 4.8%. That was the best multifam performance across all three counties. Sales activity in Hillsborough County over the last 12 months is down 13.5% and is down a little more than twice as much, 31.8% on the multifamily side. Sales price as a percentage of list price slipped to 96.9. That's the highest sales price as a percent of list price across all three counties and both types of properties. On the multifam side, sales price as a percentage of list price also slid, in this case down to 95.8, which was the best multifam ratio across all three counties. Pending sales activity rose 3.6%, and multifamily pending sales activity slipped 6.9. That was the best multifam performance across all three counties. Active inventory continued to rise. It's now 4.2 months. That's up 40% year over year. On the multifam side, it's 6.1 months. That's an increase of almost 50%. Here, as in all the other counties, single fam is performing poorly, I would say, or mildly poorly, with multifam performance still weaker. In Pasco County, single fam home prices slipped 5.3%. On the multifam side, they slipped a little more than twice as much, 11.5%. Sales activity slipped almost 1% on the single fam side and a much heftier 36.9% on the multifamily side. Sales price as a function of list price continues to decline for both single and multifamily. On the single family side, that ratio stands at 96.3%, and on the multifamily side, a little weaker, 95.2%. Pending sales activity on the single family side was tied for best at 7.3%. Multifamily pending sales activity declined 20.1%. Lastly, active inventory here too continues to rise. It's now at 3.9 months, up 30%, but that 3.9 is the lowest single fam inventory in months across all three counties and both types of properties. On the multifam side, it's now 4.7 months. That's up almost 40%, but 4.7 is also the lowest multifam months of inventory across all three counties. Here, like in the other counties, single family, while not performing great, is certainly performing better than multifamily properties are. In Pinellas County, single-fam home prices slid 5.2%. Multi-fam prices declined almost twice as much, 10.3%. Sales activity went up 3.5% on the single-fam side. That was the best performance across all three counties and both types of properties. Multifam sales activity slid only 22.4%. That was the best multifam performance across all three counties. Here, like everywhere else, sales price as a percentage of list price continued to slide. On the single fam side, it's 95.1, and on the multifam side, it's 91.9. That's really quite low. Pending sales increased 7.3%. That was tied for the best performance across all three counties and both types of properties. Multifam pending sales activity slid 16.6%. Lastly, here, like everywhere else, inventories continue to rise. They're now at 5 months on the single fam side. That's an increase year over year of almost 40%. And on the multifam side, they're up to 8.8 months, an increase of almost 50%. Here, like in the other counties, single fam performance was much better than multifam performance. Turning our attention to the national economy, while inflation continues to decline, which is great, other data is declining too, which is not so great. Housing sales, new home construction, consumer spending, the labor market. That's not good news. Reinforcing this lack of good news, I would say, is the soft data, which has been bad for quite some time. If you look at surveys of CEOs and small business, households and purchasing managers, it's all quite negative. And the question is, where do we go from here? And it looks like the hard data is following the soft data. And I think the economy will in fact slow. GDP last year was about 2.5%. I expect GDP this year to be half as much. And the major culprits for this are tariffs and the uncertainty surrounding the tariffs, in addition to high interest rates. And I would really like to see the Fed lower rates, or at least tell us that they're soon likely to lower rates. The problem is the Fed blew it back in 2022 when they told us that inflation was transitory, and it turned out not to be, and it turned out to peak at over 9%. The Fed doesn't want to make a policy mistake again and lower rates prematurely or raise rates inappropriately or whatever. So instead, they're going to wait longer and see what happens to unemployment. And when it starts to go up and they see it going up, they will certainly lower rates. But until then, it's a matter of waiting and seeing. I expect the Fed to cut rates by 0.5 point between now and the end of the year. Starting in the late third quarter, they'll cut a 0.25 point, and then another 0.25 point somewhere in the fourth quarter, maybe more, depending on how much unemployment deteriorates. Turning to the housing market, at the national level, the housing market is really stuck in, say, first gear and going nowhere. The combination of high interest rates and high home prices is really stymieing the housing market. What's really changed, however, is inventory. Inventory is rising very rapidly. It's now at 4.6 months, the highest it's been at since well before COVID. And as a result of that, buyers have opportunities. The problem is the high prices and high rates discourage first-time buyers and other buyers from getting off the sidelines into the housing market. We're likely to need to see interest rates decline to at least under 6% to begin to get households really moving and buying homes, preferably below 5.5%. We'll see where that happens. In terms of the Florida housing market and economy, it's pretty good on the economy side. GDP growth is pretty good. Unemployment's better than the national average. That's good news. But as we all know, the Florida housing market is clearly cooling. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And if we see by how and what, if you look at the top 20, the worst performing 20 cities in terms of the price declines from the peak, of those 20 cities, 10 are in Florida. And within Florida, if you look at single family versus multifamily, single fam is weak, but multifam is much weaker, there's no doubt. So we end up in a situation here in Florida like we have elsewhere, of declining prices, but high rates and high prices. The key thing is there remains a shortage of houses, in particular entry level, and that will limit the decline. And as a result, we will not experience anything like we did in 08, 09, even if we have a small decline in home prices.